So I'm just gonna shoot straight with you guys. In the last video, I completely forgot about Cait Sith. He just completely slipped my mind, and people in the comments rightfully called me out like, you forgot Cait Sith. And you know what? You are right. So we can rectify that right now. Where are we gonna see Cait Sith? I definitely think it's gotta be like it was in the original game, and that is at the Gold Saucer. Now, Cait Sith is a character who is a robot controlled by Reeve, who is inside of Shinra Tower. The best place for Cait Sith to show up that doesn't raise suspicion is the Gold Saucer. This gigantic Moogle-looking robot with a talking cat talking to people doesn't really seem out of place there. So that makes the most sense. And we did briefly see Cait Sith as the place was falling. So Reeve is definitely one of the guys who's going to make himself aware to the party to try and help Cloud and Avalanche stop what's going on. As for how Cait Sith is going to play, I could totally see Cait Sith being this varied tank healer kind of role, and it would be really cool if his triangle ability was a mimic ability. So rather than having to equip the enemy skill on him, he could just have a built-in enemy skill ability that will allow him to learn other characters' abilities, and also act as that tank support healer role. I really think that is going to be the best avenue for a character like Cait Sith. And then of course his limit break was a literal dice roll that could either help you win a battle or absolutely murder everyone in your party. So how they're going to rework that, I do not know, but it could be very interesting. Now up next, before we get to Zack, who is a very important character, I wanted to point out and shout out two comments that were left on the last video in regards to my theory about Yuffie stealing your materia. And I just wanted to shout out and highlight these two comments in particular because I really do like them and agree with them. And they are much more nuanced than anything I came up with. My theory was essentially, well, in the original game, Yuffie steals your stuff, and the remake, Yuffie has to steal your stuff again. Very bottom of the barrel. I'm still gonna stick to my guns though on that scenario. We need a way to get our characters reset back to the beginning, and one of the reasons why I think Yuffie will still be kind of wary of Cloud and the crew is even if she does remember Barrett and Tifa, she was there when the plate fell. And as we know, Shinra likes to spread misinformation and propaganda. Avalanche is going to be the one who get the blame for all of that like it was in the original game. And perhaps Yuffie goes along with it. Maybe she realizes, hey, maybe these guys were more dangerous than I thought, which causes her to cause some problems for Cloud in our party. Now up next is Zack. So at the end of Remake, we learned that Zack is alive in an alternate timeline. He's not dead, he survived because we defied fate, essentially. So I think that Maximilian Dood actually pointed this out the best. He thinks that the best way to do Zack in Rebirth, or going forward, would be to make it a Final Fantasy VIII situation where in that game you controlled Squall, but at certain points in the game our characters would fall asleep and you would then play a sequence out as Laguna and his party. You could very well have something similar happen with Cloud and Zack. Maybe Cloud and his people don't fall asleep, but at some point in time, we jump ship to the other timeline to see what Zack is doing. And what's Zack going to be doing? I think he's going to be doing exactly what Cloud and our party is doing in their main timeline. So maybe he has his own version of Avalanche. Might not be Barrett or Tifa, but perhaps he teams up with the Turks. After all, Aerith is either presumed dead or missing at the end of the Intermission DLC, so Zack teaming up with the Turks makes all the sense in the world because he knows them. He knows that they would have connections to Aerith. And I also think it would be a really cool nod to Advent Children if in Zack's timeline, Cloud is a delivery man. He's a courier like he was in Advent Children. So now he's not a soldier anymore. Maybe he helps Zack with some things here and there in some battles, but to see him kind of be like that courier kind of guy would be a nice little wink and a nod. And what would Zack's ultimate goal be? I think it's what Cloud's goal is, and that's to get to the Northern Crater to stop maybe not Sephiroth, but Genesis. Now, Sephiroth would fit as Zack's villain. He's caused a lot of issues for Zack, and these two know each other. But if you look at Crisis Core, who is the main antagonist for Zack? It's Genesis. So it is possible that in that Northern Crater in Zack's timeline isn't Sephiroth, but Genesis. So I still think it would work best if it was Sephiroth, but I would not be shocked if Genesis does show up. As for how Zack will play, he's probably going to play like he's going to play in the newest Crisis Core remaster. Something similar along to Cloud, but obviously with his own unique abilities. So that's going to be really interesting to play out to see how Zack from Rebirth differs in combat from Zack from Crisis Core. Now, this is kind of where these videos take a little bit of a turn because fleshing out the rest of this scenario is really difficult because it depends on one very important factor, and that is the death of Aerith. I firmly believe Aerith will in fact die in this trilogy. I think she kind of has to die. That's one of the biggest points of Final Fantasy VII. Without Aerith Aerith's death, you don't save the planet. And I think that the developers want to try very hard to get not only the characters in game, but also the players, us, to think that we can save Aerith, that there's going to be a way to defy destiny like we did in Remake and keep her from dying. But ultimately, she has to die, and that's what makes it even worse, and that's what's going to make her death so much more impactful, is that it's inevitable. So trying to figure out what areas could change towards the end of the game is really dicey, because everything that happens in that latter half of the story in the original game is kind of perfect. You know, going from the Temple of the Ancients where you get the Black Materia to Bone Village to the Forgotten City where Aerith eventually perishes just makes sense. However, afterwards, when you go to Icicle Inn and you start snowboarding, that seems kind of inappropriate to me. So in our last video, we left off at Rocket Town, and I jotted down some ideas of what you could do. So we would leave Rocket Town on the Tiny Bronco and head towards Mount Corel so we could gain access to the Gold Saucer. The massacre at the Gold Saucer happens, and we are thrown into the Corel prison, framed for that massacre. We then leave, go to Gongaga, which could be a really cool area to learn more about Zack, and also jump over to Zack's timeline to see what he's doing. And then we would head back to the Gold Saucer and then continue the events of Temple of the Ancients until we get to the Forgotten City. And then eventually, Aerith does die. We get to Icicle Inn. Maybe we take out the snowboarding just because, you know, if someone close to me died, the last thing I'd want to do is snowboard. We end up going out into the mountain, freezing our butts off until we can finally make it to the Whirlwind Maze at that northern crater, where we eventually have Cloud lose his mind and hand over the Black Materia to a dormant Sephiroth, giving Sephiroth new life, rebirthing him, essentially. And then we end at Junin, where Barret and Tifa are going to be executed, the world is ending, the weapons are attacking, and Cloud is basically, he is now lost to us. So it's a very dour ending, but it kind of makes the most sense. So with that being said, that's basically the video, and that's my theory of how I'm fleshing out to Rebirth. Now, it's important to remember that the developer said that the order of some of the locations will in fact change, so it's very likely that 3, 4, 5, hell, 6 or 7 areas could change, but everything else stays the exact same. Trying to flesh out how Rebirth could play out going forward has been a lot of fun, and for those of you who have watched my videos and commented and leaving your own theories in the comments and talking to one another is really awesome to see. That's why we do this. At the end of the day, I could be absolutely dead wrong on my theories, but it's still fun to just kind of flesh this stuff out and do it for fun. So if you made it this far, if you could click that like button, that would be very much appreciated. This is not the end of my Final Fantasy videos though. I'm sure we will be getting more Rebirth information throughout the year as well as next year, and I will be covering those as well. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Again, leave all of your theories in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do your plans for this game and the characters differ at all? I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.